I am Kirthell Roberts of Walnut Grove, Panola County, Texas. I am a descendant of Baker and Thelma Roberts, who Baker was the son of George Roberts, and George Roberts was the son of Bill Roberts, who is considered and given the title of the founder of Walnut Grove community. Bill Roberts had four sons and 2 daughters, and throughout, he was born in 1842, and in 1872, my granddaddy was born. And after the end of the Civil War and slavery, he settled in the area on the Sabine River that we call Garner Springs. And then after that time, later, everyone that lived in the area eventually moved to the west side of what is Ironsbow and began to call the area Walnut Grove. My grandfather had, great-grandfather and grandfather had a house seat right in the middle of the community, and around it was walnut trees. And so, and it's still, there's a couple of walnut trees still there. And that property is still owned by the Roberts family. But anyway, if you look at his tombstone at the Walnut Grove Cemetery, it will say, Bill Roberts, father of Walnut Grove community. Now, that's my background in Walnut Grove. I grew up in the 50s and 60s. Started the school at Turner Elementary. My first teacher was Miss Thomas and Miss Sanders, Gazelle Sanders. And we in Walnut Grove didn't have a community school at that time, like West Side, East Side, South Side. So we all came in along with the kids from 1100, what we used to call 1100 across. We all came into Carthage and started in the 1st grade. And so there were about, I guess 20, 25 of us. And then by the time after we going through the 8th grade, then we were joined by the freshmen who were coming from West Side, Hollis Quarter, and Long Branch, South Side, Shady Grove, Gary, and East Side over Centennial and River Hill and that group. And our class was the class of 1968, which is, may I say, hasten to say, that it is the best class of Turner. In my elementary, I had such classmates as Wade Raines, Raymond Franklin, and one of the best artists, he had more talent, it just never played out, Willie Lee Scott. Willie Lee Scott could draw and one of the smartest guys, and I always now look back on the talent he had. If he had just had a little bit of avenue and encouragement, he probably could have been, Lord knows what type of an artist. And then such people as Carolyn Gorey, Willie Fern Beatty, and all of those. We had some very astute people, Claude Richardson, in our class. Now, when I started school as elementary, T.J. Ingram Jr. was the principal. By the time I got to the 3rd grade, a gentleman called E.W. Brewster was our principal. And Mr. Brewster was principal indeed. And he had eyes in the back of his head and eyes on the side of his head, because he could be standing on the very far end of the building and tell us we were supposed to, in the evening, form a line on each wall and never get over in the middle, never cross. And from the very back door down to where he was standing in the middle. And he could see if somebody was back there fighting or hitting or whatever, as long as that hall was in the dark it was, or if somebody changed lanes and got over on the other side. And he never said a word until you got down there, and that's when he would give you a lick with the gin strap. He knew exactly. We went on through elementary, and then he became principal at the high school in latter years. It was after we had graduated, but he stayed with us all the way through, so to speak. In high school, someone that followed us, 2 teachers that followed us from elementary, was Creasy B. Leary and A.B. Tatum, because Miss Creasy was our graduating class senior sponsor, and Aunt B was the co-sponsor.
And why are you calling her Aunt B?
We call her, and everybody knew her as Aunt B. Her name was Beatrice Tatum. And everybody throughout, I think she even taught probably, I know my older brothers and sisters, and maybe I don't know where she even taught mom. I don't know. But anyway, Aunt B. Yeah, we would say Aunt B. Then who else we had? Coach Ragsdale, Coach Randall, Coach Ragsdale. And then by the time I was in the 6th grade, Homer Shepard, who was alumni of Turner, gone off, got his education, became a teacher, came back, and began teaching at Turner Elementary. And we always, Homer, bless his heart, he's dead and gone now, but we were always afraid of him because his feet alone, he was tall, muscular, but his feet alone, we used to tease. I know he wore at least a size 14 or 15 shoe. And he was on the coaching staff at high school. Such people in high school also that were influential to me was Mr. who became Reverend, but during the time he was teaching, C.L. Floyd. C.L. Floyd replaced Mr. W.H. Cost in the agricultural department. And for whatever reason, he saw something in me, and my first trip to Prairie View A&M University was because of Mr. Cost, who was the ag teacher. He would take the top of his ag class to the then National Farmers of America annual meeting, and I got a chance to go. Then Mr. Floyd took me, one from each class that he had. He would take one, the top, those he considered top. And I got my first chance to go to the Houston Livestock Show. The Fort Worth Livestock Show. And for a country boy, had never been further than maybe Longview or Marshall. To go to Houston, to the Astrodome, that was, he took us to Austin. And he made this statement. He said, I don't care. I want you all to go around and I want you to count how many English majors, how many math majors, how many history majors you can find. And then compare them to how many ag majors you can find that's out of a job. He said, because when you go into ag, it's the avenue for so many things. And I took him at his word. I left Turner High, graduated from Turner High, and Sharon, she said all these things. I really wouldn't tell this, but anyway, I graduated as salutatorian of my class, went to Panola with the goal in mind of majoring in some form of agriculture and minoring in biology. I got to Stephen F. and I knew I did not want to teach because I had teachers in my family. I wanted to do something different. I got to Stephen F. and they introduced me to agricultural technologies, which dealt with everything from agricultural chemicals, marketing, futures market, all of these areas. That's what I majored in, agricultural technologies. And then at the opportunity I got in 1970, civil rights was front and center. Every agency needed some minorities. One day, my head of the department told me, Dr. Stanley told me, he said, Kurt, I want you to be in my office tomorrow at 2:30. I thought, oh Lord, I'm trying to figure out what in the world they're going to put me out of this school. Because I was bad and hanging on financially. And he said, I want you to be in my office at 2:30. And I'm going to, I'll address it from there. Well, what I didn't know was Nacogdoches was the area location for then what they call the Soil Conservation Service. And in the Soil Conservation Service was a part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The next day, the area conservationists, which was the leader of the whole area around Nacogdoches, which probably covered something like about 20 counties, was there in Dr. Stanley's office to interview me. Now, I didn't know that's what the intent when Dr. Stanley told me to be in his office at 2:30. So I was there, and he introduced me to a gentleman named Claude Compton. And he told me he asked me did I know anything about federal government, federal employment, da-da-da-da-da, and all of that. And he talked with me about my goals for life and so on and so forth. And so he left, the interview was over. As I went back to my class, Dr. Stanley said, when you get out of this class, I want you, Mr. Compton wants to see you in his office over on South Street, rather. I thought, boy, and I barely had enough gas to go back and forth. Well, and may I add, I didn't tell you in high school, the year my freshman summer, at the age of 19, a classmate of mine, whom we had not dated or anything while we were in school, she and I, along with another couple, went to a musical festival. And from there, in all those years we gone to school together, we saw that we had an interest. And that summer of my after my freshman year, in June, we got married, and the rest is 50 years of history. But we have 2 kids, but anyway, she was with me at when I was at Stephen F. And I'm wondering what in the world is Mr. Company just got through interviewing me. So I drive out and find the building on South Street, go in, and he said, "Come on in, Kurt." I sat me down. He had some papers on his desk. He sat me down. He said, "How would you like to work for the federal government?" I said, "Well, yeah, I'd love to, you know." He said, "Tell you what, I want to hire you." And of course, now it hadn't been but about an hour that we had the interview. He said, "I want to hire you, if you will. I want to start you." And I'm thinking, well, I still got a year and a half of school. And he said, I can't do what until this summer. I won't be able to put you where I want to, but what I want to do, I'm going to hire you under what they call then a WAE, which is a Workers Active Program. And they gave me a job that I could work up to 15 hours a week, whatever my schedule would allow. I could work on holidays when the rest of them was on leave. And so I became a federal employee, so to speak, while I was going to school. That summer, they converted me to a student trainee. Then that gave you almost full employee rights. And my time started then. So in 1970, I became an employee of the federal government, and 37 and a half years later, I retired. And it took me, I went everywhere. Now some of the things that, Sharon, that you'd asked me about, during my tenure, I was the first black, I was the first civil rights chairman of the State Committee on Civil Rights for the whole state of Texas and Natural Resources Conservation Service. This was along about 1985, 86. As a result of that, I got 2 National Superior Awards that carried me from little old Mount Pleasant and Gilman to Washington, D.C. to receive those awards in the company of the Secretary of Agriculture, the senator from our great state, the representatives, and little old me. I never had no experience of that kind of thing before. Also, I was the first black area resource soil scientist. I managed 21 counties and all the soil survey activities in those counties. I had about 5 under me, plus I coordinated between what they call 12, maybe 13 district people. All survey activities had to come through by way and be approved through by way of me and my staff. And then from there, I got the opportunity to become statewide in soil activities and in resource conservations. My travels, I've been out of the country, I've been to the East Coast, from Seattle and Portland all the way to Maine, from South Dakota, all the way to the tip of Florida. So, all because of the activities I had in Soil Survey. As far as funny stories and legends, well, one legend we were discussing, and that has to do with my family. Two. One, my grandfather's oldest brother was accused somewhere in the late, no, it's been around the 1900s, was accused of rape of a white lady. And all of Panola County law enforcement, everybody else was looking for him. And as the story goes, they had been pulling corn out in the community, and they were hauling it to the mill to get it ground. And so, since he was from Walnut Grove, I guess all the sheriffs, posses, and everybody was out there. And they covered him up, I'm told, under that straw, under those corn stalks, until they got him. They're going to a mill, I think, at Begbel, until they got him up out of the community. And he took off into the bottom and then went to Oklahoma. And we know for a fact he was in Oklahoma because we have family in our family reunion from Oklahoma that are his descendants. From there, he came back to Texas, but never back to Panola County, never back to Carthage. He lived in Jacksonville. He had a family there. He lived in another portion of Oklahoma, and died in the Jacksonville area. Now, my granddad and my dad, I remember them going. My daddy carried my granddaddy down to Jacksonville and Russ County. Cherokee County. But I didn't know. I just when we going down Jacksonville, boy, well, that's what it was all about. Mm-hmm. They were going down so they could see him, and he lived his life out. He never was captured. I don't know whether he was guilty or not. But anyway, the Lord blessed him. Now the other thing is, we've talked, Sharon and I. She's been involved with my late cousin Mildred. One of the things that was so intriguing to me about her was early on when she started, and of course she's much older than me, but listening at my late cousin Fanny Robbins Thompson, talk about how that her speech was impaired when she was young. And one day, she admitted Mildred was a year older than she. And she said she was about 5, so that meant Mildred must have been about 6. That Mildred told her she was going to fix it. So she could talk. And so she got a pair of scissors and had Fanny to open her mouth, and she clipped her palate. And it worked because Fanny could sure talk. I think those things, when I think about family, it moves me because we have a long legacy. But those, yeah. You want me to keep talking?
Okay, well, let me ask you one thing.
Okay.
Can you talk about transportation when you were in elementary school? How did y'all get back and forth to turn,
yeah.
including 1100?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, our transportation, we had buses and had a bus in our community. Mr. John Henry Thompson drove our bus. And we went, that was early on. Later, as the kids from 1100, and we merged into the bus with such as Colin Pipkin, Mr. Fate Robinson, which I was asking you about. Was he related to you? Mr. West Walton. But we would come to school on the bus, and it would our school at the Circular Drive, and it would let us out right there between the elementary school and the high school. And those who were in elementary school went to the elementary side and so on and so forth. Because back then, you were definitely not allowed. If you was an elementary student, you weren't allowed to be caught dead on the high school side, and vice versa. Also, they even provided a bus that would only be one bus, but it would come all the way from 1100 and across the river through our community to go to basketball games or special events like school programs and so on and so forth. And we had some, kids to be kids, and all of us would be playing on the bus, but it wasn't nothing like this situation you have now. Whatever that bus driver said, that was it. I recall one time we were playing on a bus that had gone to a basketball game, and guy trying to get on the seat with the girls, and on the back, and Mr. Fate Robinson Mr. West Walton was driving the bus, and we were back there jumping from one seat to the other and so on and so forth, and boys trying to sit on the seat with the girls and all. And he stopped that bus and flipped that light on, and he said, "I don't know what's wrong with you all." I said, "But I tell you what, if you all get on a seat and stay on that seat, I know what will be wrong with you." That's all he had to say. If you knew old man West Walton, that was it. And we sat in that seat until we was time for us to get off the bus. We had, and it's just so much different from what it is now.
Well, a couple from Mr. and Mrs. Adams from Bettville said that they used to walk to Carthage from Bettville. Did you walk from Walnut Grove to Carthage?
Oh, Lord, yeah. Easy.
And how many miles was that about?
It's 5 miles. We considered it 5 miles from right in the community to downtown Carthage.
But how long did it take you?
We never paid any attention as to, but it was probably something like, I'd say maybe about 2.5 hours, 3 hours, less than that. Because we knew what we had to do. And back in that time, we thumbed, and people would pick you up. We knew what time certain people would be coming through that lived over at 1100 or over across the river. So if Bear Brooks gonna be coming through here, let's say Bear Brooks will be coming through. He'll be through by 4. So we tried to get out there on the road or in the community at Walnut Grove. Elvin Thompson Sr. Elvin, you get off at 3 o'clock. All right, well, we need to be out there somewhere. That's how we did it, and then also in the way we would go, there were ways we would go without going on the highway. I don't know whether you ever heard of Cast Black Bottom. All right, that road, yeah, that's gonna be before your time. But the county road is, if you go out Neal Street, well, see, Oak Grove, which goes north and south by the Methodist Church, the CME Church.
Okay.
Follow it down the railroad track, keep it on around. It turns in, crosses the loop. Well, then, before it loops in, that's called Cast Black Bottom. Cast Black was, I believe I'm right, was Mr. Geddes' black daddy. They were all raised off down in that bottom. You follow that road and take a number of roads, and you end up in our community and never even hit the highway.
Okay, well, let me ask you one last question.
Okay.
What about community activities? What about church, and what about your neighbors, like growing up in Walnut Grove?
Yeah. Our church was it was the center. It was the center of everything. I mean, from the social, it was the social point of the community. I remember the old pastors, and we sing, we go to various in the Federation of Choirs and all of that. And then we had Leonard Williams and others, but we had a community baseball and softball league. We used to play teams at Carthage. We made our own field out there right behind Wade Rain's home. We made a field up, and we would play Carthage, and we would play every now and then Hollis Quarter and maybe Bagel. Then we had, we get a group of us together, we go fishing down the Sabine River. Oh Lord, and they have a fishing contest. Yeah, then we come back and they have fish fries. You know, them old fish fries. And when we, back in the time when you really had 19th of June, we really had 19th of June under the oak tree with the red soda water and the barbecue. And everybody, then we did it on a community basis. Everything that happened, every parent was everybody's parent. Every mother was everybody's mother. Every father was it. And so we, everybody was just, we all come up thinking we were all related. Most of us were, because of the way we were raised. And that's one thing that really bothers me now, is that family camaraderie is missing in the black community. Yeah. Especially when you know that that's not how it's been. And I sometimes think that our technologies and advancement may be really maybe putting us backward than it is advancing us,
Okay.
Was there anything else?
I think you covered it all. I really appreciate it.
Well, Miss Jones, I appreciate the opportunity